tape around his body.
Fuck Charlie Alderman. I swallowed it wrong. Fuck. I'm sorry. I'm gonna do it again. Fuck. I really do apologize, gentlemen. That was unprofessional. I gave him food, so that won't happen again. I'm already full. Fuck.
Flawless victory.
2, 1, action. Welcome back to the Vibe Report. It's been a while.
We'd like to thank our sponsors and the network for giving us another shot after a little while. We're back, and thank you.
Let's move into the new format of the Vibe Report and take a gander at the standings of the league.
Little playoff predictor going off right now.
Oh!
Some flashes going on in the Vibe Report studio. Please pay no attention.
Good signs.
Yeah, positive things.
Omens. The fantasy gods are smiling upon us.
Anyway, so looking at our standings right now, it's led off by a little bit of a surprise riser, somebody who's jumped to the top of the league very quickly. RB University, head coached by Alex Reese. A couple wins in a row puts you in an 8-3 win-loss record, most points for, and
It's not true.
is that not how this works?
No, Charlie has a ton of points for it. Alex has another win than him, though.
Oh.
He's just gonna
Most points for in the most winning record, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, then it's headed up by. I mean, I think Alex's team is.
Actually,
his running backs are carrying.
Both of the 8-3 teams actually have been on a couple tears. Tal's team as well has won a couple games by a very convincing margin. It's no longer an auto draft team. Credit to Tal. He's made a lot of trades, and they've done pretty well.
Yeah, you see the top three guys all have a 99% chance to get in the playoffs. I mean, Alex and Tal are pretty much all but confirmed at 8 wins, and then Charlie, even if he loses the rest of the games, has a massive points for advantage.
So many points
so
for
he would get it anyways.
Yeah, hopefully so. The only way that Charlie wouldn't get in is if 8 wins is the requirement, because some of the like 6 and 7 win guys win more games, and then 7 just isn't enough. But right now, it's gonna take a lot for that to happen. So our 7 win guys, Baby Want Milky, Tush Push Kush, and Bacon Switch, all 3 basically just hoping for 1 more. That's kind of all you need at 7 wins. If you get to 8, you're basically guaranteed to get in.
Charlie's playing me this week. It's not looking good.
It would be the funniest thing of all time if he lost the rest of his games. But yeah, we'll see. You had a resurgence last week, made over 100 points for the first time in
5 weeks.
In 5 weeks, so
Returning the
hopefully trending upward. You get some guys on bye as well. So
And then Jake Ferguson got injured again. So as I rise, I also must fall.
yeah, so as the Vibe report is concerned, not completely shot. It sounds like from Poop Bowl Inc., the newly renamed team.
We're working hard.
Yeah, Tush Push Kush and Bacon Switch both. Noah probably should have won like a couple weeks so far this year. He's been in some insanely close matchups.
Couple of classic Noahs that start.
Some classic Noah, punts, as it were. And then
Some Rivers Revenge. I mean, he's turned it around recently, dropping some numbers.
yeah, unfortunately for him, this week the stack is on bye, so he's gonna have to piece together a roster. But I think Gabe's team, he and I are both 6 and 5. We have pretty good teams with some pretty important buys remaining in the season. And I think we're both just kind of praying that whoever we have on our bench is gonna be enough. We still play each other this season, so that's going to be like a super important matchup in 2 weeks, I guess. For playoff implication. Moving on to the 5 win teams, we have Bakelin Tyrone and Swifties for Smirnoff. Some stuff needs to happen for you to get in. Your 7 is on the fringe, and you need points for. 8 is guaranteed.
Out for sure.
There's 3 more weeks, so if you win out, you're in, and that would be like insanely cool to see. Would probably be bad for me, so hope it doesn't happen. But they've got teams, they can compete, and I don't know what their schedules are for the rest of the season, but it can always happen.
Yeah, then we move on to, 10th and 11th place. You got 18 and 1% to make playoffs, so you're telling me there's a chance.
Yeah,
That's where I was at a couple of weeks ago.
Bennett definitely doesn't have a chance. I don't think it's possible for you to be at 6 wins and still get in with how the rest of the league is gone. And
No, and I play Charlie and Al again, so
okay.
I also play someone else.
Yeah, Kevin was talking earlier this week about how it could happen, and I already sent the hypercopium image, and that's basically
Tal. I play Tal again as well.
Okay, yeah. Good luck, sir. If Amon-Ra St. Brown hasn't been doing anything like what he's been doing, you are gonna have an uphill battle.
Bring on 14.
Yeah, but we'll give a little Poop Bowl preview, I guess, as well. Headlinered by the star of the show,
Poop Bowl Incorporated.
Poop Bowl Incorporated, the newly renamed team. But things are trending up. Things are looking better than they have in the last couple weeks. You had a couple buys and you still put up a good score this week.
T. Higgins is on bye this week.
That does not sound good, but for the playoffs, it doesn't matter.
He's 13 and 14.
Yeah, Bennett's team had a lot of buys this week. Malik Neighbors was on bye. He's coming back this week, and actually we play this week, so it's going to be a big one for me. I really need to win. I have to win the next, 2 out of the next 3 to be guaranteed. So, yeah. Anybody could lose the Poop Bowl. I don't think there's any teams that are tremendously bad, even though your record is not good. Your team's still putting up points recently, and I think that bodes well for you in the playoffs.
I'm just in my cave building. But me and Kevin are just getting dumped during games.
Yeah, the points against are absolutely terrible. All over 1,300. The bottom 3 people in the league all have over.
I'm crested 14.
Over an average of 130 points against. You almost have 140 on average, which is. Nobody in the league has averaged 140 points a game. This man is just getting absolutely crapped on.
Charlie's averaged 140 points a game.
Okay.
The highs and the lows!
Fair enough. Yeah, it's thus is
I'll get
fantasy
to
football.
one day.
It does tend to be, rather be lucky than good. So.
And I'm not lucky or good. Obviously.
It's not where you want to be. All right, gentlemen.
On that note.
Everything's still so up in the air. It's going to be super interesting to see how it goes in the next couple weeks. Good luck to you unless you play me.
And with that, the resurgence episode of the Vibe Report comes to an end.
Thank you, sponsors.
Alright, hello, and welcome back to Behind the Lines with Gabe and Kev. This is your Week 10 and Week 11 review. How you doing this week, Kev?
Good. I finally won a game, which feels good. My voice is a little shot, so I apologize in advance, but we're still going to put on a show regardless of the situation we got going on.
We have to.
We have to. I'm excited to be back.
Yeah, and we'll go ahead and get into it. Both podcast co-host getting the win this week. It definitely feels good. But we're going to try and keep that rolling with some wins in the following weeks. Yeah, we're going to look at Week 10 quickly. We'll look at my matchup here at the top. I beat Bennett. This was to get back to even in Week 10 for me. I moved up to 5-5. Bennett moved down to 3-7. Bennett had some decent performances, guys like Rashad White and James Cook highlighting the running backs, and Darnell Mooney did pretty good as well, but there were some underperformances around there, and, obviously this was kind of a blowout from the jump. Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase on Thursday Night Football combined for 97 points, unheard of from a stack combo. I think it's record-breaking, from what I saw. Definitely record-breaking, and then, funnily enough, Dallas Goedert with 10 points was my next highest player, according to this. So, the rest of my team combined for less than Jamar Chase's points. Goddamn. Really happy to have the stack go off like this, though. Helped me put up a really highest score of the week in Week 10. And yeah, it was good overall. Next, we'll look at Tush Push Kush versus Bacon Switch. At the time, Wyatt got the win to extend his win streak to 5, which is the league record at the moment. He had guys like Jalen Hurts with 31.6, Travis Kelce with 20.4, and Cortland Sutton popping off with 19. Noah, another game under 100 points. Bijan Robinson puts up 30 and you only put up 95. It's really unfortunate. You hate to see that. A couple of guys perform well. And then we had Riley Reid option take on Al's team. They cloned Tyrone. Tal putting up under 100 points as well. Calvin Ridley highlighting the team with 25 and Amon-Ra with 18. Joe Mixon with 17. Just unable to get it done. Al's team kind of went off. Lamar got his 40, and then this was Chase Brown's kind of big solidifying his role game in Week 10 with 22 points, and then Terry had 16 and allowed Al to get back to even as well, I believe. You want to take these last three?
Where we at? Baby Want Milky and Swifties for Smirnoff. I think Sam was the lowest scorer on this week. He only put up 66 years, so Charlie got kind of an easier win at 107.9. Oddly enough, Austin Eckler was his highest scorer on the week. That has to be kind of new. Not really much to bring home from this. Not really a great game from either guys, but Charlie got the win here to move to 7-4 at the time. Or no, that was 7-3 at the time.
Yeah, 7-3.
And Sam drops yet another one. He's on kind of a skid right now. So definitely a tough loss there with only 66 points as well. Really, really poor week, unfortunately, for Sam. Next game here is RB University and Monsignor Diggs and and Fellas, I think
the
is
Fellas,
what it is.
yeah.
Yeah, 108-77. Eli escapes his beer chug, but has moved now to 0-10 with this. I know this was one shy, or this tied the old record for longest consecutive losing streak. More on that soon, I suppose. But in staying true to Alex's name, he gets a big game from Chuba Hubbard, and then Russell Wilson has a solid game that week as well, and then Eli getting some big games from the top of his squad with James Conner and Justin Herbert, but the rest of his team kind of fell short and was unable to deliver. But Alex got the win there.
Yeah.
And he's on now kind of a streak, if that's what you're about to talk about.
I was going to say Alex in Week 10 went to 4 wins in a row, and we'll talk about his Week 11. But I did want to give a bit of a nod to Eli. He had the injury to Dak. He found out he'd be out for the rest of the season. He had picked up Herbert that week, actually, I believe before Dak went out. Maybe it was the week after. But either way, really solid waiver pickup from Eli. Herbert in the past couple of weeks, I think 4 weeks, has been averaging around 20. So it seems that the what's his name? God, how am I blowing the coach's name?
Who, Harbaugh?
Yeah, John Harbaugh. Or is it Jim? Jim's the head coach of the Chargers.
It's Jim.
Yeah, John's the Ravens coach. Yeah. Jim Harbaugh's kind of switched up the offense. They were very run heavy in the first half of the season. It seems like he's letting Herbert kind of let it fly a little bit more. And it's working out well. I mean, Herbert's doing well in fantasy, and just hats off to Eli for at least attempting to maintain a full roster despite all of the bullshit he's going through.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now, and he's got 28, 23, 21, 28. Now, look, that includes Week 11. So that is 4 consecutive really solid weeks. And this almost feels, starting Week 7, kind of right after the bye, or starting with Week 8, actually, sorry. This kind of feels reminiscent of Dak Prescott last year, where he was like completely terrible, unusable for fantasy until a certain time of the year where they just decided to change the offense. And maybe a really good pickup for Eli. Obviously, it won't save his regular season, but maybe it can help him in the playoffs later on in the season. Maybe there's something to be noted there.
You go ahead and take this last matchup. I'm actually thinking of it. I'm going to let you guys know live. I've got a talking point about Eli's team that I want to mention later in the pod. So a little foreshadow there.
Okay. I'll run us out here, though, with the Week 10. My game, me and Henry. I lose here 114-101. I would have won this game if I had just started Kyler Murray, but instead I got tired. I don't know. I don't know what I was thinking. I started Daniel Jones, who had a good matchup on a whim, and as Daniel Jones does, he sucked and only put up 8, and Kyler put up 30, so I would have won this game. But it was not meant to be. Henry kind of got a huge game from Brock Purdy and a big game from George Pickens, and then he just got some average games kind of across the rest of the way. Ended up beating me as I had no big explosive games and obviously no QB presence. So Henry ends up beating me again. I've only ever beaten Henry once, despite what he called a rival. I guess it's not really a rival, except for the time that I beat him was our biggest our biggest matchup, I guess you could say, in the playoffs last year. But he gets my number yet again, and yeah, it sucks.
Yeah, and that does it for your week 10. We just did some quick hits here, and we'll go ahead and move into week 11 where we do our full dive in. Of course, we have my matchup here at the top versus Wyatt. Slim Reaper's Revenge takes on the Tush Push Kush. I come out with the dub 129 to 85.6. The team overall really solid performance here from me. My total points average has gone up significantly in the past couple of weeks. Past 4 weeks specifically have been really great for me. Highlight performance from Joe Burrow with 35, Jamar Chase with 26.5. You love when the stat combines for 60 plus. Devon Achane, a great game with 20 in kind of a blowout against the Raiders. I watched a lot of this game, and I honestly thought that Achane was going to get more points. He had about 20 going into the fourth quarter, and the Dolphins were up big. I expected them to run, and they kind of just switched the offense around, did a lot of short passes and screens. Achane wasn't the recipient of most of those, but I still got out with the win. Ramondre, another decent game with about 13 in a pretty high-scoring loss to the Rams. The Patriots ended up throwing the ball a lot, so I'm very happy with his performance despite that. Smitty and Goddard only combining for about 18. Really not what I want to see out of them. Obviously, Goddard as a waiver pickup for me. I've kind of struggled with tight end. It's really good to see him performing well at about that 10-11 average. But an underperformance from Smitty in a 26-18 win where the Eagles got plenty of scores, I don't love to see that. I do expect him, he's still only 1 week removed from the injury, to come back a little bit in the coming weeks and him to get more involved in the offense. Maybe Dallas Goedert's share goes down a bit. We'll see that with my waiver pickups. You can see it on the bench here, but Tank Dell, decent performance. Travis Etienne, decent performance. Obviously, I went with the wrong start. Should have gone with Addison over Etienne, but who was I to know? I thought that the Jags offense would put up a little bit more fight than they did, but only mustering 2 field goals really hurts, especially because, when you're down by so many, you can't afford to run the ball, so Etienne just doesn't see the field. On Wyatt's team, Jalen Hurts highlights the roster with 18.7, Cortland Sutton with 15, DK Metcalf with 14, and Brian Thomas with 14, but some underperformances from the running backs, 5.3 and 4.9 respectively in a game against each other. And then Travis Kelce underperforming with 2.8, really not what you need to see, putting up 85.6, the lowest of the week, almost, actually, 35 under projected, just tough.
Yeah, obviously, a good win for you here, putting up 129. Did I disconnect? Or no, I'm good. Okay. Clearly, Wyatt underperformed here, only getting the 85, and lowest score on the week. It happens. It's actually not a terrible score for lowest score, to be honest. Typically, it's a little bit lower than this, so kind of a good week all around for a lot of guys. But not really a close game here. There's nothing really for me to tack on here, but a good win for you, and getting a little win streak going, and snapping a win streak, and you're on your route to success here.
Yes, I'm very happy to be the King Slayer and break the guy who has the highest win streak. I would like to add as a little tidbit of drama, maybe a little rumor mill stuff. When it comes to me and Wyatt, obviously he was a rookie manager last year. I only played him once last year in the regular season, and I won. And then we played each other in round one of the playoffs, which I won 125 to 112. And then winning here again in our only matchup this season. I'm currently 3-0 against Wyatt, and it does feel good to be doing so well against somebody who appears to be an up-and-coming manager. But, I get the win in this one, and I'm happy about it to keep that streak going.
Starting some beef on the pod. I love it. Next matchup here, though, is Noah and Al. Noah gets the win here, 102 to 90. Kind of a low-scoring game overall. I think this is the lowest total score of any game. I don't want to fact check that, to be honest. I think that's right.
Accurate.
But yeah, Noah gets the win here, even though he only scores 102. But looking at his team here, a huge game from Puka. This is exciting. The Rams offense as a whole is starting to excite me again. It looks like Puka's back and fully healthy. Both him and Cooper Kupp had huge games. Kyron did not have so good a game, but Matthew Stafford absolutely balled out this week. So that's kind of exciting to see the Rams get going again. And then, of course, Nico Collins coming back from his injury. Really bad game this week. Just in general against Dallas, that game was just bad, and
Joe
Nico only
Mixon
put up 9 points.
put on the cape.
Yeah, Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon kind of took over, and Nico Collins had a big 75-yard touchdown at the beginning of the game that was called back on a flag. But I know Noah for sure is excited to have him back, and that wide receiver duo would start to work wonders. The running back duo of Bijan and Jameer Gibbs, kind of a down week as well, only putting up 29 combined. That's also a really strong running back duo. And then Drake May, 20 points, pretty much just where he was projected. TJ Hawkinson, horrible week, only at 3. Tajay Spears, who I know got hurt, but also is just bad. So just didn't really have another option to play with here. And then Hunter Henry just kind of rounding him out at 12. So kind of down weeks from a lot of his star players, but he does still get the win regardless, as Al's whole entire team pretty much falls on their face, with the 2 exceptions, I guess. Chase Brown and Josh Downs both having good games. Lamar, his worst game of the season in an L against the Steelers. That's probably not going to be a regular factor going forward, of course.
He always plays horrible against the Steelers. Al pointed it out, but
Yeah.
it's a complete outlier in the data. Nothing to worry about.
Yeah, it's a tough divisional game in Pittsburgh. It's a really good defense, a really good team. So definitely an outlier, as you stated. And then really the only guy I'd be concerned about for Al going forward is probably Debo. Yeah, I don't know what's going on in San Francisco, but it doesn't really seem like it's his team anymore. George Kittle was out for this game, and Debo still put up a stinker. So something to think about going
And
forward.
Juwan Jennings saw a lot of targets.
Exactly, yeah. So it just seems like the offense is moving away from Debo for whatever reason. There's no Brandon Ayuk, no George Kittle, and he's still struggling to have success. So something to think about. I don't know, how that's going to look rest of season. Of course, obviously, I don't know everything, but it's definitely very interesting. He really has not had a great fantasy season this year at all for what we think Debo Samuel to be. But tough loss for Al here. This pushes him out of the playoff picture for the time being. Drops him to 5-6, and Noah with the win goes up to 7-4, and now in 5th place. So good job to Noah for the win here.
Noah comfortably in the playoffs at the moment. Obviously, anything can happen, and only real 2 things to note. I think you did a great analysis, but this is a trade revenge match. If you remember a couple weeks back, maybe about 3 or 4, Terry McLaurin for Puka Nacua was a trade made straight up by Bacon Switch to They Clone Tyrone. Noah gets the edge here, having a 23.3 point advantage on that trade, and that really swings the win. I mean, obviously you can say hindsight is 20/20 and whatever, but I suffered with this a lot last year, not having faith that my guys were going to keep performing at their level. I traded them away, and they were overperforming the guys that I traded for. And I think that Al's kind of seen that at least once, maybe twice this season with Debo. We'll have to see how that works out, but you can already see, this is my second point, he's picked up Ricky Pearsall, Debo's backup. He's kind of expecting a little bit of shakiness. He's seeing that with the past couple of scores, 6.1 here. Unfortunately, though, Ricky Pearsall he puts up the donut. Like, he's projected 10 points, doesn't get anything, and you only put up 17 points as an offense, but the 49ers offense hasn't looked that great in general. So that's my 2 cents. I think Al's lost a couple of trades this year. He's still in that playoff race at 5-6. We'll talk about that a little later, but a tough loss to take here when you are at 500.
Absolutely. Especially knowing it was winnable with Noah only putting up 102. Those are the ones that really sting for me personally, is when your opponent doesn't really score that much and you still can't get the win.
Mm-hmm.
It's very unfortunate. Very unfortunate.
I've had 2 of those this year, a 0.5 loss to Noah in week 1 of the season and a 2.2 loss to Sam a couple weeks, 5 weeks ago. Really changes the outlook of your season. I mean, that's the difference between being... 3.5 points is the difference between me being 6-5 and 8-3.
Yeah, I'm gasping for air versus being very comfortably at the top of the standings. Yeah, absolutely.
Looking at our third matchup of the week here, Swifties for Smirnoffs took on Riley Reed Option. He lost 99 to 159, got swamped by 60 points. Tal puts up the highest score of the week, and he'll be receiving his $10 shortly. Moves up to 8-3, back in that top seeding. He's currently in second behind Alex because of points 4. Sam falls down into 9th place to 5-6, and I'll say a couple of things about Sam here in a second. His team and his managerial skills, but looking at Sam's roster first, you have a lot of guys perform exactly as projected and just a few key underperformances. Pat Mahomes puts up 17.8, DeAndre Swift 16.4, Josh Jacobs overperforms with 23. Garrett Wilson, a horrible game, where you put up 27 points, you still lose to the Colts, but he only puts up 5.5. Khalil Shakir with 15 is a good game. Dalton Schultz with 8.3 right at projected, and then underperformance from Rico and Amari Cooper, and you don't break 100 and you lose. And even if your guys put up what they were projected to, you were going to lose handedly anyway. No start-sit decision could have saved you here, even though you had a couple of guys on the bench outperform. I guess you can walk away knowing that you would have lost regardless. Tal's team goes off here. Amon-Ra puts up 38. Joe Mixon puts up 35. You've got some scores from Javonte with 18.7, Xavier Worthy with 17, Juwan Jennings with 25, who we mentioned just a couple of minutes ago. And then a key underperformance from Kyle Pitts here. Tal, auto drafts Kyle Pitts. Ends up being pretty good. I think he was tight end like 4 or 5 through the first couple of weeks. Fell back into the top 10. Keeps falling. The Falcons' offense just looks worse and worse week in and week out. He's still 6. How?
I don't know how it's possible, to be honest with you.
He has been so bad. I feel like every week we look at Tal's score and it's not good for Kyle Pitts.
That says a lot about the tight end position. His average points is 9.3. He's had 125 point game, but yeah, it's been, I don't know how he's tight end 6, but that's what I have here.
That's crazy. Either way though, Tal puts up the league high with a couple of underperformances from guys like Calvin Ridley, Kyle Pitts, and Jaden Daniels. Still does great. You're very happy if you're Tal. You're pretty much guaranteed. Actually, you are at 8 wins in this competitive of a league. You are guaranteed the playoffs at 8 wins. So congratulations to Tal. You have made it in, sir. And yeah, the points I had to talk about Sam. He's currently 5-6. There's one game guaranteed that he gave away to Wyatt. He gave that game away. No joke. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. He would be 6-5 if that didn't happen. The other game where he made a very questionable start-sit decision, deciding not to force drop Tua, putting Rico Dowdle in the IR and picking up Zeke in order to replace him. Rico Dowdle had been declared out with illness like an hour before the game. It was a move that I, as commissioner, was okay to do for the nature of this injury or illness. And Sam said, you know what, I'm up by 16, I'm just going to ride it anyway. He ends up losing by 7. Zeke put up 8. Sam would have won. That's a 2-game switch right there due to just his own decisions. He would currently be sitting at 7-4 and comfortably still in that playoff conversation. But now he's on the outside looking in 9th place, and with his points for, he's going to have a miracle run. So.
Yeah, I've got nothing to add. It's definitely been kind of a slippery slope as the season has gone on for Sam. I know he was at one point sort of at the top of the standings earlier on and has obviously kind of fallen quite a lot lately, unfortunately. But next game here, RB University versus Jefferson Starship, a really strong, consistent outing here from Alex at 129. It's not going to blow you away, but it's a very, solid score for sure. And then Bennett unable to break the 100 threshold here. Kind of makes this sort of a blowout game of a 32-point deficit. The most impressive thing here, I think, is that Alex did this with really no QB. Russell Wilson puts up 4 points against Baltimore. I don't know how they won this game when the QB only put up 4 points. To be honest,
ridiculous.
It's kind of unbelievable how Mike Tomlin does these things. But he gets huge games from his RB1 and 2, specifically.
And 3.
And Saquon Barkley. Big games in the flexes too, but really big from the 1 and 2, 31 and 34 respectively. Both, that was the first time we've seen Breece Hall really do something. Saquon, I have nothing to say about that, but Breece Hall, really the first time he's had a game like this all season.
He's been consistent, but he hasn't had that explosiveness.
Exactly. Last year, I had him, and he had these very up and down games where I'm looking at his log now. He'll have these games where he'll put up 3, 6 points. That's just because the Jets are the Jets, and they have games where they absolutely suck. But then sometimes Brees would go off for 30 points, and he had one game here that he had 26, which is obviously really solid, but he hadn't had a game quite like this yet. So it's definitely nice to see Brees Hall have this kind of big resurgence like he just did, at least for Alex's case. Maybe not for anybody else, but especially not Bennett. Um, but looking at the rest of his team here, pretty big game from J.K. Dobbins. He got a touchdown at the very end of that game that kind of saved his game with like really late in the fourth quarter at the very end to sort of seal the game for the Chargers. Then he also gets 18 from Lab McConkey. So really good matchup against Cincinnati, starting two Chargers guys. I have no issues with it. He combined for 36 points, 37 points. So really solid there. Then kind of bad game from D Hop and Pat Fryermuth, and then an okay game from DJ Moore, who's been kind of a disappointment this season altogether. But he puts up 129 with that effort, and obviously gets the win. Looking over at Bennett's team, kind of some disappointing games. Obviously, we know about the Taysom Hill situation. If he had started Taysom Hill, he would have won this game.
And I mean,
Kind of dropped the donut. Go ahead.
sorry, I just can't help myself.
No, you're good.
I had a couple of glasses of wine, gentlemen. Excuse me, but I just don't think that there's any world where you should start Tucker Kraft here. Chicago has been the number one defense in terms of fantasy points allowed all season. They only allow 20 here, and only allowing 2 touchdowns and 2 field goals. Tucker Kraft, I believe I saw most of this game, wasn't on the field for most of it. I saw him on a couple of plays. I believe he got 2 or 3 targets, did not catch any of them. And yeah,
He got one target.
one target. Okay, I thought I saw him a couple more times, but even still, like, the robot projected him under Taysom Hill, and it's so close that you can call that a good start-sit decision. But Cleveland's offense has just been really bad this year, and that leads to the other team getting more possessions. And I think with the Chris Olave injury, we've seen since then, I think Taysom Hill is averaging like 16 points. So you picked him up on waivers for a reason. You didn't pick him up to just sit him. I know that you want to start Tucker Kraft because of the trade that you ended up making. Tucker Kraft and Alan Lazard for DK Metcalf. Let us not forget that garbage. And Alan Lazard is still in your IR, has not played it down for you. So unfortunate here, Bennett loses, but, you go ahead and dissect the rest of the roster.
Yeah, he gets obviously the donut from Tucker Kraft, and then really bad games from C.J. Stroud, Dick Chubb, and Darnell Mooney. Kind of just unfortunate for the Stroud situation, at least, in a blowout game. But we mentioned this earlier. Joe Mixon just kind of did everything, and there was really no need for Stroud to do much. I think it's a fine start starting Stroud here against Dallas. You'd think it's a good matchup, and it is. Just kind of unfortunate a game script went away from him because the run game was so dominant. And then, Darnell Mooney kind of got hurt in a really bad game against Denver. Tough matchup anyways, but he has been really good, so I respect the play with guys on buys. Pretty unfortunate, honestly. And then a huge game from Jerry Jeudy, which I think needs to be mentioned.
Definitely.
26 points against New
when
Orleans.
your team only scores 14.
Yeah, I know he scored a touchdown for sure. He might have actually scored.
He got a long one.
2.
Did he get both?
Yeah, I don't see him. No, he didn't get either. Oh, no, he got one. I'm sorry. He got one. 6 for 142 and a touchdown. So really solid game from Jeudy.
Wow.
But unable to break the 100 threshold and end up taking the L here. This will eliminate Bennett from the playoffs. No doubt about it. He's now 3-8 in 11th. And there's really no path to the playoffs with 8 losses. We've mentioned it before. It's just kind of impossible, especially with one guy at 0-11 in the league. It's just not, the math isn't there. So unfortunately for Bennett, he is all but eliminated.
But
Alex the win.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. You've seen the fatality animation of Bennett this week. So
yeah, you're going to make another one. Those are
fun. Yeah, I'm going to do it for everybody.
Yeah, there's more to come. But, Alex with the win moves up to first, so shout out to Alex.
And I would like to add here, we'll see how how much time I have on my hands, free time to add Alex's image in here too, but this is actually the first guarantee/fatality matchup that we've had. Alex with the win moves up to 8-3, securing his playoff spot and killing Bennett's playoff hopes at 3-8. So I may end up crudely pasting Alex's image over the guy who commits the fatality. So we'll see.
Yeah, it is kind of interesting. He gets his own spot and takes away another. So it really is. I don't want to say the word it's a playoff game because it definitely wasn't. But in that sense of one team gets eliminated, one team gets in, it does have that effect.
Am I going to be able to do it?
What are you trying to do?
Hold on. I'm going to cut around this, but fuck, I'm not going to be able to do it. The fucking Thanos.
I don't even know what you're trying to do.
Hold on.
The ring thing?
No, where he goes. Fuck it, whatever. Perfectly balanced, as all things should be. I'm going to cut around that, but either way, yeah, Alex gets the win here, secures his playoff spot. Bennett is eliminated with the loss, and yeah, do you want to? I guess I'll let you take the next one too. It is your matchup, so.
Yeah, I'll take this matchup. I'll let you round us out there at the end. Me versus Charlie. I get the win here, 146-107. This was the first time I've had a win since week 6. I think is what it was. So it definitely, week 6. So it definitely feels good to get back in the win column. I thought I was going to get the highest score of the week, and then Joe Mixon came along on Monday night and dropped an absolutely nuclear game, and I was unable to retain it, but it's okay. I'll take what I can get. But just breaking it down here, Aaron Rodgers was my stream with Kyler Murray on the bye. He puts up 20. Can't complain about that. You never know what'll happen. I decided to start another QB for a bad team, and fortunately it worked out this week at least. So I had bad games from my my running backs. 12.9 and 14, not bad, but nothing really to mention, nothing to write home there. Drake London only 9 points in a blowout loss to Denver. Very disappointing game for him. He's been so good all season. But then really these three guys, huge games from Cooper Kupp, Brock Bowers, and Jameson Williams. Brock Bowers with 30 points, tight end 1 on the week. No, actually tight end 2 if you count Taysom Hill. But I mean, it's incredible getting 30 points from the tight end. So he's been so good this season, man. Not to mention, this is obviously the guy that I got him from. So it's very
trade revenge.
He trades me a player, and then revenge game. Brock Bowers goes absolutely crazy on him. Brian Robinson didn't really do much in this one against him, but still, very big game for Brock Bowers. And then Cedric Tillman down at the bottom with 7 points, kind of an underperformance game. Jerry Jeudy caught most of the good stuff, and Njoku actually had a good game too. But kind of a big game. Just from those three guys. Cooper Kupp caught 2 touchdowns in this game. It's really good to see. I mentioned this earlier. The Rams offense, when they can throw the ball well, man, everybody can eat. Me and Noah talked about trading this past week. He wanted to trade me give me Puka, and I would give him Kupp. But the second piece just didn't feel even at all. I said, dude, I think these two players are more comparable than you really believe, because Cooper Kupp is a touchdown guy. And while Puka may get the yards, Kupp gets the touchdowns, and those are obviously much more valuable. So I will take it. But on the other side of the ball, really big game from Josh Allen. And he just balled out, man. That was such a fun game to watch against the Chiefs. Really good to see. And it was nice, too, because I didn't have to care about my fantasy game since it was over at that point, so I could just sit back and enjoy it. That play that he ran for, though, on 4th and 2 at the end of the game is just electric. So, 24 points from Josh Allen and 22 points from JSN. I know I've slandered him earlier this season. He has been turning it around lately and really balling out. So, kind of a storyline developing on Jackson Smith and Jibba. And then CeeDee Lamb continues to do his thing. But then just really bad games for Mark Andrews and his flex players down at the bottom. Keenan Allen and Kareem Hunt not getting the job done. And, Charlie only puts up 107 and just kind of unable to keep up in this one.
Yeah, I mean, tough performance here, even if he would have started Jared Goff, which there's no world that you should do that over Josh Allen. He wouldn't have gotten the win. Obviously, I was a Josh Allen fan this week. The only team that I hate more than the Bills is the Chiefs, And the only player, well, I guess I don't hate Josh Allen. I just don't like him because he plays for the Bills. But I do hate Patrick Mahomes. That guy fucking sucks. And I've been riding that train for a long time. And yes, maybe it is due to my Patriot ties, but I've been on the train.
I also should have pointed out, really bad game from Derrick Henry. He was literally RB1.
He fumbled on the first play of the game.
But yeah, he only put up 10 points. There was a point he had -1, and it was like till the end of the first quarter that was actually changed. So he has his worst game of the season. He still scored a touchdown. Never mind. I was going to say he didn't score a touchdown.
He's guaranteed.
He still got a touchdown.
Derrick Henry getting a touchdown is guaranteed.
It really is. But yeah, we move forward.
Yeah, we'll look at our last matchup here on the week. Roommate rivalry matchup, if you will. Henry's team takes on Eli Phoenix Rising versus Monsieur Diggs and Mine Fellas, I guess is what it is. Mine Troop. He changed it at some point. Henry gets the win, 126-103, a 23-point win, moving up to 6-5 and into that 7th and final playoff spot that we have. Eli, 0-11 in 12th place, naturally still. Extends the all-time losing streak, breaks the record, formerly 10 in a row, 0-10 with Sam's start. Eli goes 0-11, and I'm really surprised, honestly. We'll talk about this later, but I'm surprised that not only was the streak by Sam a winless streak, like not a 1-10, not like he won the first game and then lost 10 in a row, or, like lost the first and then won the second and then lost 10 in a row. It was just a straight 0-10. And then the fact that Eli tops it with the 0-11, there has to be... Yeah, I can't say respect because obviously he didn't do anything intentionally to get here, but there has to be some sort of honor that I will bestow upon him for that. He's still doing his best to make trades and keep it out there, but Henry puts up 126, solid score, will get the win this week. Brock Purdy puts up 18, Jonathan Taylor with 7, Kenneth Walker with 14, Devontae Adams with 13, George Pickens with 16, Jaden Reed with 9, and Tyreek Hill with 19. Mostly underperformances there, and you'll notice that Henry still put up a good score and got to win because of one man, Jonnu Smith, outperforming his projection by 20 points, putting up 28. He is now in that, I believe, top 15 tight end question, maybe even higher. With that game, interestingly enough, the week before, Henry wanted to trade me Elijah Moore for Jonnu Smith, or the week before that, actually, because Trey McBride was questionable or something, and I was like, I don't want Elijah Moore, and he was like, okay, but like you told me that you were going to drop Jonnu Smith anyway, so can you just like force drop him and add him to my team? And I was like, yeah, like I need to bring somebody back from IR. I forget who it was. Maybe no, it wasn't Goddard at the time, but either way, I was like, yeah, that's fine, and did that. He didn't end up starting him that week. He started him last week, and I told him, hey, like, my tight end situation is ass. I kind of did you a solid there. I'll make you a deal. If Jonnu Smith puts up over 15, I'm going to reclaim him from you. If he doesn't do that, then you're fine to keep him. Jonnu Smith only ends up putting up like 10 last week. I don't get to reclaim him. He puts up 28 this week. So Jonnu Smith clearly established what team he wants to be on, and it wasn't mine. So I hope that he treats Henry well. And yeah, Eli's team... this is the case of the twos. Zach Charbonnet 2.5, Romeo Dubs 2.7, Jake Ferguson 2.1. A lot of underperformance there. Jacoby Myers only with 8.8, Joshua Palmer with 4.3. And then, we talked about Herb. He put up 28 this week. Really great waiver pickup for him. Second highest points on his team. None other than T. Higgins on his first game, really fully healthy this season, puts up 29.8, and then David Montgomery with 24.5. Still gets Eli over that 100 threshold, but with all that underperformance on the roster, you can only imagine if he had been able to make the trades he did and not suffered the injuries that he suffered throughout this season. Obviously, he's made a bad trade, notably the Stephon Diggs one. But with James Conner on bye, he did a good job to get above 100 points here, and it just wasn't enough.
Yeah, I've got nothing to add here. I've got nothing to add here. Just keep it rolling.
And that does it for your Week 11 review, fellas. We'll go ahead and move into Week 12. We've got my matchup here at the top again. Slim Reaper's Revenge taking on Bacon Switch. This is your first week of playing an opponent twice. As you know, the schedule cycles around after 11 weeks. And here I am taking on Noah in a crucial Week 12 battle. Noah, 7-4, got a win last week, but overall has been on a little bit of a skid from where he maybe was, where his team was performing due to some injuries. I have, on the other hand, been on kind of a tear. I've ripped off 4 in a row to put myself from 2-5 to 6-5. Now positive and in the playoff picture. Kind of in that middle area where it's still very possible that I lose and miss out, but currently here projected to Noah, and these lineups are accurate, 106 to 114. I've got 2 key guys on bye, if you will notice. Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase on bye. Wide receiver 1 and quarterback 2. They are averaging a hell of a lot of points. 26 for Joe Burrow and 23 for Jamar. Unfortunately, I don't have those guys this week, but I was smart to pick up Bo Nix a couple weeks back, who is currently quarterback 7. Happy to have him as my streamer option, and I did well to draft some spare wide receivers, so I'll be starting everybody. Devontae Smith, Tank Dell, Jalen Waddle, Jordan Addison. And while Jalen Waddle and Jordan Addison have been kind of underperforming so far this season, I'm going to need them to do well. They're both projected around 10. Jordan Addison's got kind of a tough matchup. Jalen Waddle a much better matchup against New England. I'm hoping that Jalen Waddle can at least overperform, and I'm really going to need Devon Achane to kind of take the game over in New England. Hopefully Ramondre can get involved as well, and we just saw the Patriots passing attack get involved against the Rams despite how bad it's looked all season. I'm hoping that the Eagles can flourish against the Rams this week. Devontae Smith can kind of bounce back and get more involved. And then as we look at Noah's side of the ball, Baker Mayfield and Mike Evans, this might be the first time that Noah's had that stack active in many weeks. Mike Evans, of course, got injured, I believe, in Week 8, missed Week 9, 10, 11, and the bye week. Missed. Got injured Week 7, missed 8, 9, 10, 11, and the bye week, and has missed 5 total weeks, I think. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he got injured after that. I'm kind of blanking, but he should be good to go this week. I believe he practiced in a limited fashion Monday. Hopefully, for Noah's sake, he gets to be active and playable against the Giants, who have a pretty weak defense. But for my sake, I'm hoping that he doesn't. It would do well for me. Tajay Spears, who he's streaming in the case of Bijan Robinson being on bye, is currently questionable and in concussion protocol, so something to watch out there for Noah. Jahmyr Gibbs, who's been really good against a weak Indianapolis defense. Nico Collins against Tennessee. Puka Nacua against Philly. And TJ Hawkinson against Chicago round out his matchups. And, Noah is still going with the dual tight end start, Hunter Henry and TJ Hawkinson. It is definitely interesting considering they're both averaging under 10 points. But he's 7-4, and it's been working for him so far. So,
yeah, Noah definitely is star-studded more than he is depth-driven. Absolutely. So, obviously a couple tough starts here in Tajay Spears and Hunter Henry, but he's got the stars that can maybe get him the rest of the way there. So, both teams here in the playoff hunt, both in the playoff picture, but there's really a lot of things that can happen. I think Noah with the win is in. You with the win, you're probably still not in.
Looking in.
Moving in the right direction, of course, yeah. So, both guys really, I don't want to say the word need to win this game because it's not a must-win for either squad, but, whoever wins is, feeling a whole lot better about where their season is headed. So,
absolutely.
A little bit more nerve-wracking with an L, of course, but nothing set in stone with this game. They cloned Tyrone and Smirnoff, or Swifties for Smirnoff. This game feels more like a do-or-die scenario than the last one.
For both teams.
For both teams, exactly. Currently, the projection is 107 to 100 in favor of Al.
And Al has Dalton Kincaid in, who's currently not projected to play.
True. Okay, yes, I did not notice that. So, down a tight end here. He doesn't have another tight end, so he's going to pick up someone from the waivers. I really do think because of tiebreaker purposes, I don't think either of these guys have a ton of in their favor for tiebreakers. A loss here could very well eliminate either of them. Certainly some things could shake out, but the pressure really is on. Some key players to highlight here, obviously Lamar Jackson and Zay Flowers. Looking at the stack, they've got the
Zay
Chargers.
Flowers is wide receiver 8 now? How?
Yeah, he's had a couple really good games.
He was so mid for the first 7 to 8 weeks. That's crazy.
Yeah, he's had some big games. He had an okay game this last week, but yeah, he had 19, 22, 18, 29. He had a 22 back in week 2.
Damn.
He just is very up or down. He had 2 really bad weeks at the beginning of the year.
He's streaky.
He came around. Yeah, 4 points against Tampa Bay. That's a weird one that I don't understand how that's possible, but he pulled it off. But yeah, he's definitely pretty hot or cold. The Chargers are a pretty solid defense. The Bengals just had success against them. I think really good offenses can do well against them.
The
Lamar's
Bengals
coming off a really
struggled in
bad
the first
game.
half.
Yeah, but they turned it on
They
eventually.
did.
And
Yeah, they did.
I think it's doable. Lamar's it's pretty much a one-off. What happened to him last week? I think he'll be right back to his old ways. Tough matchups here though for his running back duo, Kyron against Philly and Tyrone Tracy against Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay's more of a pass funnel. I know it's the Giants. I know they suck at throwing the ball, but still they have a pretty solid defensive line. So, you want to target their secondary, and we'll see if who's their new starter now behind Daniel Jones. It's the Italian guy.
Danny DeVito.
Yeah, Tommy DeVito.
Tommy DeVito. Yeah, that's what it is.
Tommy DeVito.
Not Danny DeVito.
The short guy, and It's Always Sunny. Tommy DeVito will be at the helm, so we'll see if he's capable. And then keep an eye on Marv against Seattle. I think that's a pretty good matchup. And Debo, I mentioned this earlier. He's been struggling a lot lately. I'm curious if he's going to turn around. I think that the offense is kind of moving away from him. He's going to be free agent at the end of this year. They already signed Brandon Ayuk to a big deal. I think they're just maybe trying to phase him out a little bit. And he seems to be having some issues on the sidelines as well. Maybe some locker room troubles with him going on, and it's kind of a shady scenario. But keep an eye on him and watch him for another week. Then finally, Terry McLaurin against Dallas should be a good matchup, but you can also run the ball on them very heavily. So we'll see how that turns out. For Sam on the other side of the ball, starting off hot, Patrick Mahomes against Carolina. Obviously a team that you target. He could absolutely expose them. Anybody can. Mahomes is more than capable of exposing them. It just depends what the game plan is. If the game becomes a blowout, obviously they'll start running the ball. Maybe he doesn't get as many fantasy points as he maybe could, but we'll see. Andre Swift, kind of a rough matchup against Minnesota. Rico Dowdle against Washington. Michael Pittman against Detroit. He's been pretty terrible this season. He's position rate 51. This wide receiver duo, man, holy shit. Michael Pittman is wide receiver 51. Elijah Moore is wide receiver 65.
Garrett Wilson is on bye, and Khalil Shakir,
Yeah,
who is wide receiver 19, but horrible.
And Amari Cooper, he's dealing with some buys, but I mean this is a
Amari
rough
Cooper's
wide
been
receiver
bad.
duo. True, but this week is a rough duo there. Sam Laporta, who's actually kind of coming along lately, he seems to be like the last mouth to feed in a Lions game, but when they blow out teams, man, they will keep throwing the ball. Dan Campbell doesn't care.
Yeah.
They throw to everybody, and Sam Laporta is on the team, so he might catch a touchdown, and that's what just happened last week. And then Josh Jacobs against San Francisco, Rumadunze against Minnesota, kind of difficult matchups there. This makes sense why the projections are low. Both these guys have some pretty big pieces on buys, and
Tough
both of their
defensive
matchups.
Yeah.
Yeah, both of these matchups are pretty bad, kind of across the board. A couple exceptions to that, but in general, really bad matchups. This could be an absolute dogfight. Win or go home scenario for both teams. Win and you're still, on the line.
You're in the
but
conversation.
Still alive. Still in the conversation, still alive. A loss, and you're probably sort of, falling to the end. So, best of luck to both guys.
Yeah, best of luck. I mean, it's a must-win for both guys. Obviously, Al will be projected a little higher when he puts that tight end in there. But we've seen Sam's team kind of go off at some point, so I think anybody can win. We'll move into a different type of conversation matchup here. Tush Push Kush versus RB University. The 7-4 team versus the 8-3 team. The former longest winning streak of the season holder versus the new longest winning streak of the season holder. Wyatt in fourth and Alex in first. Currently, Wyatt has the advantage, 119 to 111. Last time these two played, we can see here down below, 118 to 93. We could see a similar script here, and both of these guys, the playoff race becomes even more condensed. As we look at the buys, Wyatt has Brian Thomas on bye, and Alex has Breece Hall on bye. So pretty comparable pieces that these guys are missing. Fairly even matchup from what it seems at the moment. Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown against the Rams. We just saw how weak the Rams secondary was. I talked about it with Devontae Smith, and the Rams can put up points, so that means that you're probably going to have to continue throwing the ball. Obviously, if the Eagles get out into a big lead, they're not afraid to just run it to Saquon and let him gain points, and if you look at the other side of the ball, Alex has Saquon, so I think this Philly-Rams game is really going to play a big part of this matchup, and then secondarily, we've talked about it in pretty much every matchup that Alex has been a part of, but running backs. Aaron Jones and Tony Pollard both coming off stinker matchups where they played against each other last week. They're both going to try and get it involved here. They've got some pretty tough defenses, Chicago for Aaron Jones and Houston for Tony Pollard, but we'll see if they can kind of get back into form. Good matchup for DK Metcalf against Arizona. Their offense is proved to be quite good, and so in order to beat them, you're going to have to put up quite a few points. Cortland Sutton against Vegas. Vegas' secondary has been pretty weak this year. Travis Kelce against Carolina. We just talked about that with Pat Mahomes. Coming off a 2-point week, I expect Travis Kelce to get in the end zone and probably bounce back to where he was. And then lastly, Cade Otton. We see another dual tight end start out of a fantasy manager here. Currently projected 11 points, tight end 3 and 5 for Kelce and Otton. And against the Giants, that's a solid matchup, and that's one that you want to have. Looking at Alex's side of the ball, Russell Wilson against Cleveland. We've talked about how tough this defense is, but the offense for Cleveland is so bad that Pittsburgh is bound to get plenty of opportunities. I expect Russell Wilson to put up a solid performance here. Chuba against Kansas City. Kansas City's got a really stout defensive line. Chuba Hubbard could struggle, but he's been pretty solid so far on one of the worst offenses, so I would expect him to see a considerable amount of snaps. Saquon against the Rams, we've talked about that. If he explodes and Hurts and A.J. Brown don't, this matchup could get lopsided. DJ Moore against Minnesota, they've got a tough defense, but their offense puts up points, so they'll have the Bears will have to throw the ball. You've got McConkey against Baltimore, which is a really solid matchup for a great player who's getting hot at the right time. Lad McConkey over the past couple of weeks has been putting up some really stellar performances, and against possibly the worst secondary in the league, that's something that you really want to have. George Kittle against Green Bay, he is questionable, I believe, with a hamstring injury. He's tight end too. You would expect him to get a solid amount of points if he plays in a tough matchup against Green Bay. Injuries to monitor, though. And then you've got D-Hop against Carolina, which is a great matchup, as I mentioned, and J.K. Dobbins against Baltimore. Their run defense has been a lot better than their pass defense, but if the Chargers get ahead in this game the way that they were able to against the Bengals and they start running it to J.K. Dobbins, you could see another 19-point performance that seems pretty unassuming. He doesn't get in the end zone more than one time but puts up almost 20. This might be our matchup of the week. We'll have to look and see what we have for the rest of the board, but the first seed versus the fourth seed, and a lot of playoff implications here. If Alex wins and gets to 9-3, maybe etching closer to that bye week, and if Wyatt loses here, he's still 7-5, still comfortably looking in the playoffs, but it starts to get a little scary. But if Wyatt wins, then the playoff race gets even more competitive because Alex falls to 8-4 and Wyatt moves up to 8-4. But I wish both these guys the best of luck, and we'll move on to your matchup here.
Yeah, Riley Reid option and Blue Medical Tent. Two teams with very different seasons going on. One trying to keep it alive. One trying to play for the bye. I'm projected to win here. He does not have a tight end, but projected 116 to 107. Maybe I can give Alex some help here, taking him down. An obvious must-win for me. My points for tiebreaker is kind of keeping me hopeful for good things to come because I do own the tiebreaker over everybody, and I obviously can't lose another game, but gonna have to win gonna need to win these next three. And let Tao, just trying to secure the bye. Still very, very solidified into the playoffs. Key players on bye though. Tal doesn't really have anybody except for Kyle Pitts, which isn't really like a huge loss. I'll be missing Drake London and Alvin Kamara, two of my best players. So things get a little bit dicey, but we can break it down. I'll start with my side. Kyler Murray versus Seattle. Pretty solid matchup. They're coming off the bye. I'm pretty confident he's going to have a good game. Najee Harris versus Cleveland. Pretty terrible, but kind of, we just saw what Taysom Hill did on the ground against them. Maybe Najee's capable of doing something like that. I don't know. He is a bruiser type of player, though, so, similar running style in a sense. I'm most excited, I think, this week about Brian Robinson versus Dallas. Not really a guy that I'm normally excited about, but this matchup is incredible for running backs. He could get in the end zone several times against Dallas, which I think is very exciting. Cooper Kupp against Philly is really bad, actually. Cedric Tillman against Pittsburgh is also really rough. Brock Bowers versus Denver is also really rough. Jameson Williams versus Indianapolis is finally a good one, but he's such a boom bust player that there's kind of real no consistency to.
You're going to
figure
need
out
it
if
to
he's
be
gonna
another
have a
Lions blowout.
Yeah, that, or he just catches a deep ball like he did last game.
Yeah.
He drops 22, but he also caught like a 60-yard touchdown, which is worth half of his points.
That's
So
fair.
it's kind of that's just kind of how Jameson Williams is. He can go out and give you 2 points. He could go out and give you 20 points. You really just don't know what he's going to do. There's really no planning for his consistency. And then Bucky Irving versus the Giants is kind of a middling matchup. Maybe it's a blowout and he gets a lot of work. That's what I'm hoping, that Tommy DeVito can't keep up and they just start giving the ball to Bucky Irving. That's my desire there. Other side of the ball, Jaden Daniels against Dallas. A very good matchup on paper. We just saw CJ Stroud. I don't want to use the word struggle because he didn't struggle. He threw one pick, but right, just one. I think he only threw one.
Yeah.
But
But he didn't have to. He didn't have to be the hero.
exactly. That's what I'm saying. He struggled for fantasy because the game was a blowout. This team is really bad. Washington is a good team. I think they can win the game on the ground. Hopefully, GameScript phases out Jaden Daniels. The other worry, though, that Jaden Daniels can do and CJ Stroud cannot do is that he can run the ball very effectively. So we'll see how that GameScript goes. That's going to be huge for this matchup, obviously with the RB1 on one side and the QB on the other side. So there's definitely very important to keep an eye on the Washington-Dallas game for this matchup. Joe Mixon versus Tennessee. That could be a blowout. Joe Mixon could absolutely eat. He's been so good lately. Running back 7 despite missing like 3 weeks. He's been insane. Javonte Williams versus Vegas. I mean, cares, I guess. He sucks. Amon-Ra against Indianapolis. I'm sure he's going to go off. He's only projected 17 for some reason. I really can't imagine a world where he does not exceed 20, personally. David Worry versus Carolina. This feels kind of like a Jameson Williams type of player. Very boomer bust. I hope, for my sake, that Travis Kelce just kind of takes over. He does not have a tight end. Actually, he has Cole Kmet on his bench, so I'll just talk like he is there. He's projected 5 points. He's going against Minnesota, which is a rough matchup as well, and a struggling offense. Not really much to write home about there. Calvin Ridley against Houston. Juwan Jennings against Green Bay. Juwan Jennings actually could go off. He scares me a bit because hopefully George Kittle plays. I'll just say that much for my sake. And finally, my last point before we move on from this game, Isaiah Pacheco has a chance of playing this week. He's on Tal's IR and he's facing Carolina. If he comes back and he's not on a snap count, he could drop 30.
It's true. I mean, he had the fibula fracture, I believe.
Yes, it was a fibula in week 3.
Yeah, and
He's been
so
out all season.
he had to have surgery to have it repaired. They said initially Chancey comes back week 9, which I thought was outrageous. Week 12 timeline seems more realistic for these superhuman athletes, but if he plays and he's healthy, yeah, that's a very scary guy. Against a team like Carolina, even if he doesn't play full snap count, if they get out to an early lead and then they're like, you know what, let's see how healthy he is, and they bring him in on like a 30% snap share, he has a little bit of that Devon Achane ability where like Pat Mahomes can get the ball to him behind the line of scrimmage and he can run for 20, 30 yards on any given play just because of his feet.
Yeah, he's going to be a wild card. I could see that going both ways. I can also see them being like, we don't need to give him more than
We can let him
8
rest another
carries
week.
because
Yeah.
because this game is a blowout. Kareem Hunt can do the job. we'll get him back in week 13. Just get him, a couple reps, but don't go crazy. I don't know if I had him, I would start him if he plays, but there's definitely a chance that they don't.
That
use
he
him
doesn't
at
get
all.
much workload. Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely the smart decision to start him. But we'll see what happens with that situation. We'll see what Tal wants to do, and not a must win for Tal, much needed win for me. Two very different storylines. I'm coming off a really good win, a really good week, so I'm gonna try and get high here at the end, and just carry this momentum all the way through the rest of the season into playoffs. We'll see what Blue Medical 10 has in store. About to find out.
I would love to see the resurgence and maybe even the challenge for the playoff spot. I love to root for the underdog. It was why I was so happy to root for myself this season. I've been suffering quite a lot. But
That's quite the narrative right there.
We'll move on to our fifth and second to last matchup of the week. Baby Want Milky versus Monshore Diggs and Mine Troop. Charlie at 7-4 in third place and Eli at 0-11 in 12th. Current projection is 122 to 102. Charlie with the 20-point over projection. Their previous matchup, Charlie won pretty handedly, 129 to 113. I believe that was one of Eli's highest scores of the season. We'll see if he can repeat against Charlie. Excuse me, hiccups. We just saw Charlie's team underperform against you, and we could see a similar thing here. Eli's team could maybe overperform. We've got a couple of good matchups that we'll talk about, a couple of tough ones, but let's look at Charlie's team first. As you know, he has Josh Allen on the bye, Tyler Lockett against Arizona, who he's going with, not starting, and then Evan Ingram on bye as well. So Charlie is currently projected to start Jared Goff against Indianapolis. Indianapolis defense has proved to be fairly weak so far. They did just beat the Jets, but the Jets offense is atrocious, and the Lions is the polar opposite of that. It's probably the best in the NFL. Actually, I take that back. It is hands down the best in the NFL, in my opinion. Most well-rounded for sure, and I expect Jared Goff to, do as projected, if not better. Derrick Henry against the Chargers. They've had a really good rush defense so far. We saw Derrick Henry kind of struggle. He did get the touchdown, which saved his game last week, but against the Chargers, we could see another low performance. Christian McCaffrey against Green Bay. He's been pretty great since he's been back. It says he's averaging about 15.7 points in games that he plays, and although he is running back 68, that's running back 68 with only 2 or 3 weeks of playtime, so he's doing pretty good. He's projected 21 points. It seems like he's fully healthy again, somehow, miraculously, due to those German doctors. Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to make a note. I've watched some San Francisco, and, obviously it doesn't, I know he's coming from injury, granted, but it doesn't look like he's not Christian McCaffrey.
No,
And
but he's still,
there's a
you see the
chance
flashes sometimes.
he could get back to that. I really don't think he's going to get there this year, personally.
But if he
I
can put up
obviously could be
15 points for what Charlie
It's
traded
still-
for,
Yeah, he's still a great RB2 to have. But Chris McCaffrey last year was 26 a game. He was absolutely unreal. And maybe I don't even know if you can get to 20. That's an incredible. From what he's coming back from. But he's definitely been, from his standard. This is the best fantasy player of our generation. So
I don't know.
if he's only averaging
Jamar
15,
Chase.
it's kind of disappointing. Maybe he's the next one, but Chris McCaffrey's been doing it for years. So
He might be the last
but I just
generation, dude. We're pretty young.
Yeah, true. How old is McCaffrey now? Too. How old is he?
29?
He was 20, 29? Yeah. But anyways, sidebar.
Yeah, no worries. And then as we look a little further down here, CeeDee Lamb against Washington. Of course, Dallas is going with Cooper Rush, but CeeDee Lamb is going to do his thing, probably get somewhere around projected 16, 17. JSN against Arizona. As I mentioned with DK, this is a good matchup. Arizona's offense is good, and their defense is pretty good too, but you're going to have to pass the ball and score points to win against them. JSN has been receiving a lot of targets. Charlie, interestingly, still has Tyler Lockett on the roster, something I begged him to do to trade away in week 3 when Tyler Lockett was wide receiver 14, and you could have gotten some really solid trade value for him. I mean, I had Tyler Lockett for periods last year. Trust me, he is not wide receiver 14 material. Mark Andrews against the Chargers, pretty tough defensive matchup. I don't expect a lot to happen here. The Ravens appear to be able to score and win without him getting involved. He does catch a couple of highlight plays every now and then, but I just don't think Mark Andrews really has it anymore, and the Baltimore offense is pretty diverse enough in the run game that they just don't need to get him involved. He is tight end 10, averaging 9.1 points, but that just shows you how bad the tight end position is this season. Austin Eckler against Dallas. You mentioned it with Brian Robinson. Really good matchup here. You could expect to see him to kind of go off. Austin Eckler gets a lot more of the receiving action. So if this game is competitive at all and Austin Eckler comes in as that third down back, you could see a lot of work. And then Kareem Hunt against Carolina. If Pacheco doesn't play, this is a green light go start. Kareem Hunt coming back from essentially retirement, averaging 15.2 points, projected 17 here against Carolina. If Pacheco doesn't play, you could expect to see 20 plus, and this game could get out of hand for Eli. And then as we look at the other side of the ball, Eli Justin Herbert against Baltimore, really good matchup. James Conner against Seattle, solid matchup as well, coming off the bye. David Montgomery against Indianapolis. We talked about that Detroit game. It could very well be a blowout. Jacoby Myers against Denver is tough. He is the wide receiver one, and Pat Surtain will likely be lined up against him. Romeo Doubs against San Francisco is also tough. Jake Ferguson against Washington is pretty good, but Jake Ferguson, I believe, is in concussion protocol at the moment, and, Cooper Rush is your quarterback. You can't expect to see a ton of work. Wan'Dale Robinson against...
Since Cooper Rush came in, he has been terrible.
Okay.
4 points and 2 points. I just wanted to point that out.
Not great.
He's not involved anymore without Dak.
Yeah, that's not great. Wan'Dale Robinson against Tampa Bay, that is a really good matchup. Sorry for stuttering there, but Tampa Bay puts up a lot of points and their secondary is really weak, but Danny DeVito was not the greatest quarterback of all time, not even the greatest quarterback of the Giants season last year. I think Daniel Jones probably edged him out. Danny DeVito went on a stretch of throwing a ton of picks toward the midpoint of last season. Wan'Dale could see some action here, but I don't expect to see much. And then Josh Palmer against Baltimore. Justin Herbert and Josh Palmer are really probably going to need to be Eli's saving grace, along with James Conner and David Montgomery. That 4-player stack right there is really the only shining light I see this week for him. If he wants to break that losing streak and finally get to 1-11, it's going to need to be to those 4 guys.
Yeah. I've got nothing to add except I'm just going to put some bias in here, and I think you would agree. I think everyone would agree that we all want Eli to win. I think that with Eli going the rest of the way, unless of course you're facing him, it's good to see a contender. Nothing against Charlie, obviously, but a guy that's in the playoff picture. It's such a tight race.
Yes.
It's good to see a guy who's 0-11 maybe steal the win, play spoiler. One of Eli's goals, he told us at Wyatt's wedding, was to win a game and to play spoiler and then to not lose the poop hole. So he still has to yet achieve all of those goals, but this would be a good opportunity to do 2 of those things at once.
He's still got time to achieve all of those.
Yeah, still got 3 more weeks to at least get 2 of them. So, well, I guess he could still win the poop hole game. That would still be winning a game. So.
Yeah, and then I believe we have one more matchup. I think I skipped over it here.
Which one are we at here? Jefferson Starship and Phoenix Rising. Yeah, this is the last one. We got all these other ones. Okay. So Bennett's lineup is not set.
2 guys missing, but dang, the current projection is fucking...
Yeah, we can fill them in.
Rashad White, that's 14 points for Bennett, and then Malik Neighbors over Darnell Mooney. So 16 and 4, so 30 points. So 102 to 119.
Still pretty rough. Bennett's season is now over. So another guy who's trying to play spoiler for a guy who is in the playoffs at this very moment, but obviously very still on the fringe, very capable of losing the playoffs, very capable of making the playoffs. And a much-needed win for Henry. So we'll see if Bennett's capable of playing spoiler. But let's look at it here. Brock Purdy against Green Bay. I think this will be a good football game. I think Brock Purdy will have probably a pretty good game here. Jonathan Taylor against Detroit. Really rough defense. Really good team. Jonathan Taylor will get the volume, but he's really been struggling lately. He's really not involved in the pass game with Anthony Richardson. So we'll see. He catches maybe 1 or 2 passes a week. We'll see how effective he can be against Detroit. He's coming off a really bad game against the Jets last week. I could see this maybe being kind of a stinker for him unless he gets in the end zone, which is always a possibility. Kenneth Walker against Arizona is okay. George Pickens, who's actually been really good lately with Russell Wilson, I think he's kind of just continues to do well regardless of the matchups. Tyreek Hill maybe started to get back into his old groove of things. Been a really disappointing season, but he's coming along as of late. Trey McBride's been solid all season against Seattle. I think he's gonna have a good game. This game just feels like it's gonna be more of a shootout, and I think that Kyler Murray, Trey McBride, Marvin Harrison all have good games in that matchup. Jaden Reed against San Francisco, he's pretty inconsistent. You never really know what you're going to get from him. I think Quentin Johnson against Baltimore, really coming along as of late. I think he continues to do well in a plus matchup against Baltimore. And Justin Herbert stays hot, is sort of what seems to be the current trend of things. So keep him in the lineup. If Justin Herbert continues to ball, I think he will too. Notably, he's missing Devontae Adams on bye, and that is it. So really not a bad bye week scenario for Henry. Other side of the ball, for Bennett, definitely going to be missing James Cook on the bye, and Darnell Mooney, who's actually been really solid this season as well. So two pretty tough losses for Bennett this week. He will replace with Rashad White, who's got the Giants. I think that's a pretty good matchup. I mentioned this earlier with Bucky Irving. I think that if that game gets out of hand, which I think it could, I think Bucky Irving and maybe even Rashad White get a lot of action as well in the run game. And I think they can both do well as a committee against the Giants, potentially maybe get in the end zone once each. CJ Stroud against Tennessee. We'll see how that goes. Tennessee's defense is trash. That game could be a blowout, though. Nick Chubb, who's really not done much since coming back from injury, it's kind of tough to predict right now. Justin Jefferson will get his. Jerry Jeudy against Pittsburgh, coming off a huge week. That team just feels very tough to predict right now. Who's going to get the receptions? Tucker Kraft and David Njoku, both tight ends. We'll see if Bennett decides to maybe go with Deontay Johnson or Xavier Legette. I doubt he does. Both pretty tough, rough options. Maybe he goes with the streaming option here as well. I'm not sure. I'm sure he's going to start David Njoku at one of those spots though against Pittsburgh and double up with Jerry Jeudy. It's just not a team, and he's got Nick Chubb that he's tripling up on Cleveland. It's really not a scenario you want to be in. Yeah, it is pretty tough, but we'll see how it goes. I guess it's a tough matchup, and he's going to need him to do well and try and play spoiler. I don't think Bennett will be too bothered if he loses this week at this point. But I think we can all agree, same scenario as last game that we just covered. I think it'd be nice for everybody if Bennett won and Henry takes an L here. But best of luck to both guys. I know Henry really will want to try and get the W column here and take advantage of a depleted Jefferson Starship squad in a must-win scenario. This is kind of a good place to be.
Yeah,
no
absolutely. It is definitely a plus matchup for Henry here. He's looking to get to 7-5 and really be further inside the playoff picture, looking out. Bennett here looking to play spoiler as the 11th seed, looking to get another win under that belt. Not really in contention anymore for that Poop Bowl playoff unless Eli were to go on some incredible run here in terms of points for and winning the last 3, but crazier things have happened, like a guy losing 11 in a row after a guy loses 10 in a row the previous year. So really anything can happen here in the Carpet Capital Football League. And yeah, that'll wrap up your Week 12 review. We can go ahead here and take a quick look at the standings as we inch closer to the playoff picture. Looking here, Alex in first place due to points for being ahead by quite a bit to Tal. Currently 8-3. Tal also at 8-3. Charlie, Wyatt, and Noah all at 7-4, tied for that third place spot. Charlie with the edge due to points for, and then me and Henry at 6-5, rounding out the 6 and 7 spots due to points for. Alex and Sam at 5-6 on the outside looking in. You on the very outside looking in, needing a lot to go your way, but it's still very possible. And then Bennett, who has been all but eliminated with that robot projected 1% chance of making the playoffs, but for our sake, we'll go ahead and call it, eliminated. I think it's very interesting to look at how competitive the league has been. We've had a couple of weeks here and there where it looks like one or two guys are really starting to separate themselves, and then they go on a stretch of losing a couple, and the guys below them go on a stretch of winning a couple, and we've got 7 guys within 2 games of each other between the 3rd and 7th place. So it's going to be very competitive over these last 3 weeks, to say the least.
Absolutely, and if you start looking at points for, if you scroll down a little bit,
Absolutely.
is what I'm looking on. There's a bunch of guys in the 1200 range. So I mean, you start factoring in, even if you look at the top, Charlie with the clear lead, which is something that pops off the page. I mean, it's absurd. And at 1427, and then it starts getting so even. So that's kind of why, it's not only going to be record, but it's going to be this tiebreaker that's going to play such a big role down the stretch here. And I think it's going to go a long way. There's a lot of jumping that can be made too through these final weeks. Between 54 to 57 between Al and Tal. And those guys have a very different record, so it may not matter for that. But like scenarios like that could change a lot over these last couple of weeks, and gonna get interesting, man. This is it's grind time. So and I also want to point out too, as sort of a talking point. There are some big matchups down the road here that are going to factor in. I mentioned earlier, Al and Sam play each other, so they kind of eliminate each other. If you look at points for, basically, If one of them loses, they're done. You and Henry face each other at the last week of the season, which currently wouldn't really change anything, but that matchup could have a lot of playoff implications, especially if I'm going to bring myself in, because obviously I've looked at it. If I'm able to go 2-0 up to that game, and if both of you go 1-1, and then I get factored in as well there, things start to get really dicey. So still a few weeks out, but we won't have a pod next week. So this is going to look a lot different in 2 weeks when we join up again. But yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah, it is really interesting. And as we look, I would like to analyze here who has the least points against. Maybe do a little bit of a fraud analysis. As you can see, the bottom 3 people are Noah, Sam, and myself. Currently, 2 out of 3 are in the playoff picture. Noah with the least, only by 30-ish to me and Sam. But the interesting thing is that while I do have fairly low points against, I have the 4th highest points for. So what I'm lacking in defense, what I'm making up for in defense, I'm also making up for in offense. I don't know what to say, but Noah only.
I think sorry to cut you off.
Go ahead.
That's
Go,
just
no,
interesting
go ahead.
though, because you mentioned that you had those 2 losses that were within 4 points. So that kind of makes sense in a way. That's like your record isn't as good as maybe as it could be if you look at your splits between points for and points against. It's such a large. It's 100-point difference, but you're only. Or sorry, it's 130-point difference, but you're only 1 game below 500. It's kind of weird. Like that's a scenario that occurred, I guess. It's just losing those close games sucks.
But yeah, and then at the bottom, kind of counteracting Charlie's points for, Eli with almost 1,400 points against. I think like unheard of at this point. His opponents are averaging like 131 now, 129, something like that. Maybe 127. It's tough, dude.
127, yeah, that's rough.
Yeah, it's tough. Even if you can put up over 100 each week, you can't expect to win every game. Obviously, apparently not any game when your opponents are averaging almost 130. But yeah, that'll do it for our kind of, playoff check-in, unless you have anything else, Kevin, before we dive into the injuries and the talking points.
No, I've got nothing else.
All right, well, let's go ahead and dive in. Not really many injuries this week. We'll go ahead and kind of fire through these. Tajay Spears with a concussion. He exited the game last week. He may play this week. We don't really have any update as to this point. My guy, Jordan Addison, he left the game after catching the bomb touchdown with cramps. He should be good to go for Week 12, but it's something I'll be monitoring closely as I have Jamar Chase on bye. Mike Evans, who is returning from injury possibly in Week 12. He practiced limited Monday, but having, I believe, 4 to 5 weeks of rest after the partial hamstring tear, you would expect him to be pretty good. However, he is an older receiver at 31 now, so it takes longer to recover when your body gets to that age. So we'll see how well he plays and if he's able to go at full strength. Laporta with a shoulder strain, he may miss Week 12. I believe he played Week 11, and he kind of underperformed. I think he only put up like 7-8 points, but we'll see if he's good.
That game was, it was 52-6. Everybody scored.
Yeah. Njoku has a knee injury. I'm not sure exactly to what extent. He may miss week 12. He was limited at practice Tuesday. He put up a good score last week, and Bennett's really going to need him if he's able to go this week. And then, do you want to hand off these last couple?
Yeah, I was also going to point out about Njoku. They have a short week. They play Thursday, so
That's true.
something to also monitor. George Kittle did not play this past week. He has a hamstring injury. Should be back this week, but you never really know when a guy's coming off a missed practice. Missed game. Brock Purdy right shoulder strain, unlikely to miss time. Something to monitor. Should be fine. Alexander Madison ankle sprain, could miss multiple weeks. I think he did come back in the game, but I know these things can get worse sort of the day after, as like swelling goes up and stuff. I don't know. I'm not
And
a
the
doctor,
adrenaline
but that's
wears
what I hear.
off. Yeah.
Exactly. You take the tape off. Yeah. So he could miss multiple weeks. We'll see what that means for Zamir White, and that backfield sucks.
Amir
Who cares?
Abdullah.
Yeah, that backfield is terrible anyways. And then finally, last one, actually, very short list this week. Darnell Mooney, mild hamstring injury. This game was a blowout. They took him out for it. Kind of felt like a precaution. Like I said, blowout game. They have a bye this coming week, so really nothing further to say on that. We'll just sort of evaluate that next week as that gets to be more relevant.
Yeah, and a pretty light injury week, as you said. Really surprising with how rampant injuries have been, especially to key fantasy players. But that'll do it, and let's do our quick hits, talking points. We have a couple more than usual as we get close to the playoffs, but I'll start us off here. I end Wyatt's 5-game win streak. We talked about it. It is the longest this season. Alex currently tying that with his win last week and looking to extend that. I'm looking to beat Noah and go up to 5 wins. So we'll see if that's able to happen. But speaking of which, Alex in first place, standalone due to points for. Obviously tied in record with Tal, but nod to Alex. I have made my opinions known about what I think he should do with that roster, trading away some of that running back depth for some startable guys at wide receiver. You're starting... Ladd McConkey has really showed up in the past 4 or 5 weeks. It's been a great trade acquisition for Alex. I will give him that. But aside from that, DJ Moore, I believe, is wide receiver 28, if memory serves. And then I can't even name the next guy on his list. D-Hop? No, that's on Sam's team.
It is D-Hop, yes.
Oh, it is D-Hop, okay. So, yeah, I mean, those are your top 3 receivers. It's kind of a tough position to be in, especially when so much of your team's value is concentrated at the running back position. Either way, though, he's in first place.
It's been a winning recipe.
Yeah,
it's been a
that's
winning
what I'm
recipe.
saying. Either way, he's in first place, and hats off to him. In addition to that, another guy at 8-3, Tal wins again. The mostly auto-drafted team up there in that top conversation. Tal has been consistently staying at that top spot pretty much all season. He started off hot. He stayed hot. He traded for a couple of injured guys once he knew that he was a couple games above 500, and those guys are coming back from injury, and Tal's team is looking stronger, I'm expecting him to make a run this playoff race, and he's already guaranteed his spot, so a better performance than he has had in the past 2 years of this league.
Has he not? I know he didn't make it last year. Did he not make it the year prior?
I don't think so.
His first time in the playoffs is interesting to see how he does this year. I guess that's exciting. I didn't realize it was his first time. That's cool. That's a change of narrative for sure.
Definitely. And then something else that may be a change of narrative, I'm hoping to start. Charlie loses, goes to 7-4. He does, however, have a fairly easy road to the playoffs, playing both Eli and Bennett in 2 of these last 3 weeks. But can he walk the path to success? We saw him fail to do it against you last week. He said he started to make some claims about starting Jared Goff. I'd love to see you do it next week when Josh Allen's back from bye. That would really be the test of your guff as a man. But yeah, I'm just hoping to start a little narrative there. You keep your season alive with a crucial win over Charlie in that game at 4-7. Kind of a mirror matchup situation. 7-3 versus 3-7. You flip the script and go to 4-7. You have to win out in order to make it into the playoffs. I'd just like to get your thoughts on where you are mentally at the moment as a manager.
We'll take it a week at a time. Nothing more than that. I looked at it. When I was 3-7, I was like, well, if I look at my points for it and I do win out, I can do it. Winning 4 fantasy games in a row is no gingerly, stroll in the park, but we've just mentioned multiple guys that have done that this season. It's a very doable thing. You just did it. Alex is on a winning streak. Wyatt just pulled off a big winning streak. It's not out of the realm of
Definitely
possibilities. So
possible. Yeah.
I'm not, in a place of darkness yet. But I'm aware that, if I were to sit down next Tuesday, this entire season could be over. I fully understand. But it's really good to have the tiebreaker. I can't stress how important that is to my season. So, I'm just gonna, take it week by week and just try and focus on, try and, making some managerial decisions. Maybe that'll help me out if I have them. And just right now, this week, navigating buys and kind of just getting lucky, dude. You got to get lucky sometimes in fantasy, and
Oh, don't
I'm
I
just
know?
really hoping. I'm just really hoping Tal shits the bed this week. So I was looking at Tal, and he has one of the most inconsistent rosters, I think,
Yes.
of this entire leaderboard, and it's worked out.
Boom
He's gotten.
bust. Boom bust.
There have been times where he scored 99 points and won. That has never happened to me before. My opponent has never scored below 100. But he'll also have weeks like he just did this week, where he's the highest scorer at 159. So I just gotta hope that I hit him on a bad week, and maybe get some luck going in my favor. My schedule down the road is not easy though, at all. It started with Charlie, which is not an easy matchup last week, and then I know I played Al. I play Sam in week 13, which is maybe not as bad as it could be, and then I forget who I end with actually, but
Is it Al?
could be interesting. Is it Al? I think Al plays. No, I don't think it's Al. Shit, I can't remember. Let me see. I play Sam in week 14. Oh, I do play Al in week 13. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
So two guys that are on the fringe of the playoffs, but I got to get through two of the top dogs before I can get to some of the more guys in the middle of the standings. I got through one, so just take it a week at a time and keep my hopes up. That's what I've been trying to do.
I like that.
Trust
I like
the
that.
trust
A
the
week at a time.
foundation that I trust the foundation that I built. Go 1 week at a time, and don't bench Kyler Murray again. That shit was stupid. So
Yes.
cost me a week.
Understandable. Yeah,
Yeah.
and then next in one of our last points here, there may be some sad violin music playing in your head, and no, that is not you going insane. I've put that in there because Eli has lost and has broken the all-time losing streak. He has extended to 11 in a row. It will likely never be broken. Unfortunately, that is a record that is probably cemented in all time. It may continue as well. It's not over yet. It's still going. Yes, Eli, however, before I say this last thing, has confidently stated since I believe week 8 or 9 that he is going to lose them all. He is prepared to go 0-14. And yeah, there's something else that I'll add as our last talking point here, something for you all to mull over, but Eli does pay one full buy-in into the league savings. I will be collecting that throughout this week, something we all agreed upon before the draft because of how unlikely it was that the 10-game losing streak would ever be broken. So you guys will see some of that, boom, 75, cha-ching, into the league savings. Maybe sometime a couple years down the line, we're able to use some of that savings to take a league trip. So thank you, Eli. And then I kind of already talked about this. 3 teams at 7-4, 4 teams between 5-6 and 6-5. It's going to be a really tight playoff race, and it's anyone's game to secure a spot at the moment. Any of these 7 teams could make and or miss the playoffs, and it's going to be really exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot of. I think we all got to take it week by week at this point, bro. I know you and me are getting big picture because we're both excited, but the reality is that you kind of just got to hone in
You
one
gotta
week
win.
at a time.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just got to win at this point. So I think everyone maybe has made some managerial decisions that they are pissed about. I know I've got one in mind that I'm never going to forgive myself about, but now's the time where you really can't do stuff like that. You got to be as crisp as you can, and we've learned a lot in 11 weeks. So now it's time to really sort of put it all together and take what you've learned through 11 weeks and start doing what you can with the squad that you have. Sometimes you can't win. Sometimes football happens and you lose, but some losses are always avoidable.
Yes, I agree.
Most losses are avoidable.
I agree, and on to that note, I'll share one last thing here by sharing my screen. my last point, Eli is likely to get the Poop Bowl bye and have, not be able to win a matchup.
It's not possible that he doesn't get the Poop Bowl bye.
He's
He's 3 games behind Bennett.
Bennett could lose out, though, and he could win out.
Don't 3 guys get the Poop Bowl bye?
No, just
is
one.
it only one?
It's one.
Okay, there's only one. Okay, I'm sorry. I stand corrected. But if you also look at tiebreaker...
Oh, wait, there's the play-in game.
Yeah, there's only, I think the bottom 3 get a bye, I think, right? Isn't that what we do? And then there's one play-in for the 8 and 9 seed. Yes.
I think you are right.
It is.
I think you are right.
So the bottom 3 seeds, so there's no chance that he doesn't get the bye. So.
I guess that's fair. Yeah, so he's... Okay, well, either way, he knew that he was locked in for the bye. I will say, he planned for this. Eli's round 2 of the playoffs, NFL Week 16 matchups are bar none the best in my opinion. Now, when it was Dak, it was a much better matchup opposed to Justin Herbert. But
yeah, like 5.
Yes.
Yeah.
We need a troop.
I'll be honest.
That's your call.
Sorry, everybody wants to play COD.
No, you're good, Kevin. I will say that Eli's matchups are bar none the best for this second round of the playoffs. He has planned well. He is ready to win in the Poop Bowl playoffs and get out of having to do that punishment. As you can see here, James Conner against Carolina, really expect him to perform well. David Montgomery against Chicago, pretty tough defense, but Monty has been really good and the Lions' offense is explosive. Jacoby Myers against Jacksonville, their defense has been one of the worst. T. Higgins.
This is crazy. I can't
Yes, he has told me about this. He has been scheming for this round 2 of the bye, trading for guys that have good matchups that are seemingly underperforming. T. Higgins against Cleveland, the 25th ranked defense. Jake Ferguson against Tampa Bay, currently the 28th ranked defense, and originally it was Dak Prescott and Jake Ferguson against Tampa Bay, which is a much better matchup. Obviously, Denver has a tough defense for Justin Herbert, but lastly, you've got Romeo Doubs against New Orleans and Wandale against Atlanta. Eli has been plotting for this round 2 of the playoffs, and I'm very excited to see him go 0-14, have a bye, and then win that first game in Week 15 and be out and not have to do the punishment.
And play in the championship game either. Just be done. Like, not even have the stress of having to play in Week 17. So that'd be an interesting storyline. That's what happened last year with Sam. He was 2-12. Not exactly the same scenario, but very similar. 2-12. He went 2-4 in his last 4 games though at the same time, but still 2-12, and then went into Week 15 or Week 16 and beat Noah. Pretty crazy. So never really know. In 1 week of fantasy, you get some good matchups together, and a bad team can all of a sudden win a game, and that's all you're trying to do.
Yeah. Anything can happen in fantasy football, especially as you get into the playoffs, but that'll do it for us. Thank you guys for tuning in to this episode of Behind the Lines. Maybe a little bit longer as we had to cover quite a lot of content and the playoff conversation expanded, but thank you, Kevin, for tuning in here. I will miss you next week, but the pod will be back 2 weeks from now during your regularly scheduled business, and you'll have a couple of beer chugs to watch and maybe a couple more elimination fatalities as well. So I wish you all luck.
Pretty much guarantee there probably will be a couple more eliminations.
Yeah.
Maybe not, though. That would be crazy. If there's still 10 people alive going into the final week, that would be absurd. Yeah, this is exciting, though. I will hope to see a lot of you over the holidays next week, so I'll be coming home. But another good pod, Gabe, as always, and best of luck to you this week. Best of luck to everybody else.
Best of luck to you as well, Kevin. And best of luck to everybody that isn't Noah. I hope your team underperforms and I'm able to sneak a win away.
Tell. All
right, well, peace, fellas, and good luck.